What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Colton Posey Fishing. Um, Today, there's not really a whole lot of tips that I'm going to give, but I'm going to answer a question that I get constantly, all the time. So, the number one question that I get is, how do you become a professional bass angler or a professional fisherman, so on and so forth? So, here's the thing. It's not a jump in and you're there game to play. So if you're wanting to get on the tournament trail, um, it's a pay to play game. I mean, you got to have the money for entry fees, for travel, for food, somewhere to stay. Some people sleep in their truck. I mean, I've slept in my truck several times. So it's just an ongoing process, and you've got to make sure that you have that in place before you do it. Obviously, you got to have a boat. There's another expense. You got to have a tow vehicle, and so on and so forth. Um, but the there's no easy way to do it. It's not a jump in game and luck of the draw. It's how much work are you going to put in, and um, you got to have that marketing ability. You got to know how to market stuff. That's the reason most of these guys go to college, for marketing and stuff like that. If you don't have that kind of money to go to college, obviously you can make it without having a marketing degree. I mean, just ask Gerald Swindle. He's a prime example. Um, but the first thing that I would say to get started on is, just like most anglers, get into the tournament game. And I don't mean don't go jump in some pro-am or something like that. Go jump into your local, Wednesday night, Friday morning, Saturday morning, whatever tournaments that are at your local docks. Get your name out there. So talk to these people that you're fishing against. Get to know them, let them get to know you, so on and so forth. Fish with other people. This is one of the big things that most people are scared to do. They're just like, hey, I don't want to fish with anybody because I don't want them seeing my spots or anything like that. And it's you've got to get out of that mindset. Okay, it's not about the spots that you have. I mean, that does play a game in it, but it's all about how you fish. But you can learn something from anybody, whether they've been fishing for 5 years or 50 years. It doesn't matter. So you need to make sure that you're getting yourself out there. You've got to get that experience. There's a big difference between blasting off a Saturday morning with 5 boats and blasting off on a Saturday morning with 250 boats or whatever. It makes a huge difference, and the fishery is different. Another thing that a lot of people don't think about, it's easy to go out on a beautiful day like it is today and go fishing. That's the main time that people's going to fish. But I guarantee you this, and you can ask anybody that's been in the tournament game, 90% of the time when you're going to fish a tournament, you can expect bad weather. Okay, especially in the big games, because you're fishing 2 or 3 day tournaments. You could have 2 or 3 days of just awful weather. Get out on those days too and practice. That is the main thing: is practice. You've got to stay on the water. Um, Once my kids were born and stuff, I just decided that's not what I want to do. I did not want to spend 90% of my time on the water to compete with these guys. And just because you spend that much time on the water doesn't mean you're going to win everyone. It is very rare for anybody to win a tournament, period, unless you're Kevin Van Dam or somebody like that. Those guys they're just natural, that they're just natural born at doing what they do, and they've got a system and it works. Um, but most people shoot for that angler of the year status and stuff like that. Just try to be consistent. If you're fishing in a tournament with 200 boats, you want to stay in the top 40. You want to stay in those checks. That's what gets your name out there. They say, hey, that guy is consistent. Okay. Um, and that's what you want. You want angler of the year. You want certain things like that. You want to be consistent in the game. You can't just even somebody who wins a tournament every 10 years, that's not really getting your name out there. Okay, so being consistent is a big key. Okay, so another thing, Um, when you're out there on the water, being respectable is number one. That will get your name out there further than anybody. Somebody rolls up on your spot before you get there, throwing a tantrum like a toddler and just hollering at them and stuff. For instance, okay, let me give you an example. There was a tournament that we had on the ABT up at Neely Henry. I covered like 280 spots that one day, and I think only like 6 of them that I fished didn't have somebody already on them. So what I mean by that is, like, all the spots that I covered in practice that I had marked, they were already taken up by the time I got there. So I had to adjust to something different. You've got to be versatile. You've got to be able to adjust on a whim, and it's hard to do because your mind's the number one thing. Because you'll sit there and think, man, if I could just get on my spot, if I could just get on my spot, and it's not the spot. Your spots that you have is not the only spot on the lake where fish live. Okay, and two, just because somebody's sitting on that spot doesn't mean that they're catching the fish that you were targeting in practice, okay? So, I mean, I've had spots where I would go up to a spot, I would clear it out, I would catch as many fish as I could to put in the live well, like the Neely Henry tournament. That one place, I sat there and I caught like 60 fish in one spot. I had my 5 bass limit, and the fish started slowing down. So I moved off the spot. I didn't move far. I just moved off of the spot and started fishing around. Caught some more fish and stuff. Culled a couple fish. There's some guys roll up on my spot that I was letting cool down, and they couldn't catch anything. Didn't say nothing. Didn't disturb them. I just went on about my business. Didn't sit there and watch them. And when they left, I waited a little while longer, and then I jumped right back over there, and then I started catching more. So don't get caught up on spots. You've got to be versatile on what you want to do, okay? If you're there to catch fish, don't worry about the spot that you have. Worry about, just like if you go with a friend of yours, worry about catching fish that day. You've got to get out of that mindset. So another thing, fishing pressure. You're not going to be used to it at all. I wasn't. I was not at all. It's a completely different ball game. The baits and techniques and stuff that you might have used in practice may not work during the tournament just because of the fishing pressure. You've got to think, going from just a few boats out there on the water to 200 and something boats. I mean, the pressure that the fish are catching is going to be completely different. And then you have your regular recreational anglers and all that going on. So you've got to be able to adjust to that, period. So get established, get into a small tournament game. In a conclusion, get into a small tournament game, whether it's, for me, I started out at the Bear Creek tournaments. So they had a tournament like Wednesday nights, Friday nights, Saturday morning, and maybe a few more. I don't know, but I can't remember. But either way, little $20 tournaments, get into them. Get your feet wet. Win some, lose some, get used to it. Get to talking to other anglers, make friends with them. Learn some of the stuff that they can learn, or that you can learn from them, and show them some stuff so they can learn from you. So don't be as kind as possible, in a sense, okay? So don't get caught up on trying to hide stuff and stuff like that, because I guarantee you probably what you're trying to hide somebody else already knows. They're just not implementing it right, and they're out there just like you are. If you help somebody, more than likely they're going to help you in return. That part is just my opinion. That's just the way I've always done it. But on a second note, once you're established and you start doing good, let's just say you already have your boat, you have your equipment, your tow vehicle, and all that. Once you get some money saved up, I would say at least $10,000 in travel expenses. If you're even going to do just a regional trail, have money saved up for that, because you're going to go into the local tackle stores and stuff and see what they're bought out of and stuff like that. That is a big key on what they're catching fish on during that time, and what's good on that lake. You want to look at everything from the bait, the color, the the weights that are mainly gone, the size of the hooks, the line, everything. And when I say look at the line, you're not looking at the line like, oh, they're using 15-pound tests, I need to use 15-pound tests. It's okay, are they using fluorocarbon the most, or are they using like a braid with fluorocarbon leaders and stuff like that? Just really pay attention to what's going on in the tackle stores. And once you get established on a regional level, then from there, many regional tournaments, just like the ABT, they can open up windows for you. So if you do good in the ABT, they can get you in the Bassmaster Team Championship, and it's paid for. You just got to have travel expenses. So then you're getting into the Bassmasters, okay? And same way with the FLW and all that stuff. It's a pay to play game, and you've got to put in the work. Here's what people don't understand. When you get into that type of competition, all you're doing is studying maps, you're studying fish patterns. When you're not on the water, that's all you're doing. You're studying. Just like you're studying for a college exam or a high school exam or something like that, something very important. That's all you do is you study that stuff. You're reading Bassmaster magazines, you're going out to local ponds, you're going out to local lakes, you're going out to local rivers, stuff like that. You're testing new baits and stuff and just staying consistently on the water, learning to adapt. Now, once you do all that and you really put in the work, you just got to keep working at it. It takes time. It's not an overnight process. Once you do that, and you get established, that is typically when the sponsors come in and stuff. And that's the number one question that I get on top of how do you become a full-time fisherman. So, but I'll cover that in another video. But either way, that is basically step by step how you become a pro. There's no easy answer to it. It's just consistently working. It is nonstop. And if you don't put in the work, if you're just a guy that goes fishing every, let's just say Saturday or every other Saturday or something like that, you're more than likely not going to be able, I'm not going to say that you're not going to be able to, but you're more than likely not going to be able to go out there and compete with these guys. So it's getting that experience. It's getting to know people. You've got to know how to market, especially if you're going to pick up sponsors and stuff like that, because I don't think anybody could really pay their way in tournament winnings. It costs so much to travel, and the equipment and all that stuff, fish finders and boats and all that stuff. Your boat breaks down. I mean, everybody knows what boat stands for, right? Break out another 1,000. So, but you've just got to get established. You've got to get that experience. And even when you do get that experience and you do get established, it's easy to come to a standstill because you're competing the same way that you was, and that's where the versatility comes in. You've got to be able to flip a light switch and change what you're doing as you're needing to change. But getting down seasonal patterns, getting down the usages of certain baits, I say certain baits, all baits, understanding what they're used for, how they're used, when to use them, and how to use them is a big key. The colors, location is the key. You need to understand where these fish go during the winter, the spring, the summer, the fall. And I know a lot of tournaments and stuff, you don't fish winter tournaments. But staying where the fish are during the winter, I mean, I've been out there in the boat where it was so cold, I was having to hit my rod on the side of the boat to knock the ice off the eyes when I was just reeling. It was freezing that quick. So, I mean, icicles hanging out of my drain and stuff on my boat. I mean, you've got to really stay on top of everything at all times, because if you're not, somebody else is. And there again, just because you do all that stuff does not mean that you're going to make it within the next few years or whatever. It can take 10 or more years, or however long it takes for some people. It's just about how bad do you want it. And you've got to stay consistent with it. You've got to be willing to break away time with your family, with your friends, with the stuff that you um, like doing outside of fishing. Um, but not everybody's built for that. That's the reason a lot of these guys they don't get married, they don't have kids um, until they get established in the tournament game. But when they're coming up, a lot of these guys didn't have that, and it's not that having a family or anything's a bad thing. Especially going towards it, it's just you're going to be sacrificing a lot of that time that you could be spending with them on the water, and it takes so much. People don't understand it. It takes so much. And then when you get into the sponsors, that's a whole other ball game. So either way, I appreciate it, everybody. And sorry I've been gone so long. I've been establishing a homestead here. Our kids, our daughter, she's 2, and our son, he's 6 months. We've been super busy. Got chickens and goats and stuff everywhere, working the land. So I've just been trying to get established and figure out exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to get back in the tournament game again. Um, so I may just, or well, I say I may. I'm going to just produce content and help anybody that I can as much as I can, whether it's on the water or off the water or whatever. So, either way, I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate you hanging out with me, even though I've been gone for a couple years. Um, but either way, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to be producing a lot more content and stuff. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me those questions. That helps me identify what's going on at that time to help other people who may be in your situation, whether it's seasonal patterns, whether it's locations, baits, whatever it may be. But I really do. I appreciate all the support. Everybody is wonderful. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you next time.